Okay. Now, are atheists really evidence-based? So this is a guy named Richard Dawkins. Okay, have you guys ever heard of Richard Dawkins? No. Yes, some of you. Okay. If you Google like most prominent living atheists, he will be number one. He'll at least be in the top five. You just look up like, like most um most vocal or famous atheists. He's like at the top. He's an evolutionary biologist, so he loves Darwin and the idea of changing species and stuff like that. And he has written a bunch of books, including one called The God Delusion, about how God is not real. That's his like thing. God is not real. Um, a quote, he says, evidence is the only reason to believe something. Evidence is the only reason to believe something. So he doesn't believe that there's any evidence for faith, for God. I think that doesn't make any sense at all. I think there's lots of evidence. I mean, the the world is literally just piles of evidence. Okay. Lots of evidence about people who, the divorce rate for people who pray daily with their spouse and go to church versus people who don't. There is the evidence of the colonnades in the pool, the Bethesda pool, and how they that was mentioned in the Bible, and then they found in the early 1900s they found the exact layout as it was said in the Bible. The Shroud of Turin. There's so many examples. We're going to go over them in this class, but there's lots of evidence. There's lots of evidence. Okay. But he said religion poisons the ability to use your brain. Okay. So Richard Dawkins, evidence is the only reason to believe something. Believe something only if there's evidence. Okay. I'm with you. Cool. Religion poisons the ability to use your brain. Okay. So you stop being logical if you're religious. All right. Now, here he is talking to Peter Boghossian, who's actually a friend of mine. He wrote a book. We disagree on things when it comes to faith. He wrote a book called How a Manual to Create Atheists. So he's an atheist as well. He is a philosophy professor in Washington or Portland, something like that, Portland State. But here is a conversation of Peter Boghossian, who's an atheist, and here's what Richard Dawkins says about faith in God. Now remember, scientist. I'm building this up because you'll see. Okay, scientist. Okay, atheist, evidence based, proof. Here we go.
What would it take for you to believe in God?
Well, I used to say it would be very simple. It would be, the second coming of Jesus, or a great big, deep, booming bass Paul Robeson voice, saying, "I am God, and I created." But
I mean, okay, I think that's valid. I mean, that's a good thing to ask when people have like a specific belief. It's like, hypothetically, what could change your mind? So ask Richard Dawkins, this famous atheist, what could possibly change your mind? And he goes, well, a big booming voice from the sky. All right. All right.
saying, "I am God, and I created." But I was persuaded mostly by actually Steve Zara, who's a regular contributor to my website, richarddawkins.net. He more or less persuaded me that even if there was this booming voice and the second coming in clouds of glory, the more probable explanation is that it's a hallucination or a conjuring trick by David Copperfield or something. I mean, he made the point that a supernatural explanation for anything is incoherent, that it just doesn't sort of, it doesn't add up to an explanation for anything.
So what would persuade you?
Well, I'm starting to think nothing would, which in a way goes against the grain, because I've always paid lip service to the view that a scientist should change his mind when evidence is forthcoming. The trouble is, I can't think what that evidence would look like.
Interesting. Guys, that's interesting. He said nothing would change his mind. What evidence could I show you? Nothing. Then your belief is not based on evidence. If you have a belief, it doesn't matter what it is. You have a belief that you did not arrive at based on any kind of evidence. It's just a feeling. Just a feeling. Like it's just I just feel this. Do you have any proof or evidence? No, I just okay. So you arrived at this belief with no evidence or proof. What proof could I show you to get out of it? Doesn't work like that. That's actually an idea by Sam Harris, who was a good friend, also atheist, a good friend of Richard Dawkins. These guys are saying things like it poisons your ability to use your brain, and evidence is the only reason to believe something. And then, when said, well, what if this evidence did exist? Would you change your mind? They said no. So, is it really that the Christians who are taking apologetics and looking at evidence, the stuff that I'm gonna be going over in this class throughout the year, like, is it really that we're the ones who don't use our brains? Or is it you because you've written books and you can't really go back because you're the atheist guy? That if you Google famous atheist, he's going to be at the very top. Can he just like turn his life around and say, like, you know what? I was wrong? He can. He'd be like the Apostle Paul, maybe. I don't know. But interesting. Very, very interesting. His like right hand person was a woman named Ayan Hirsi Ali, and I'll bring her up in future classes as well. But she was also a staunch atheist, and then she became very, very sad, and she wanted to kind of hurt herself, so she became a Christian, and her life got better. And she met with Richard Dawkins. They were good friends because they were both like atheism, yay, okay, no God, yay. And then she was like, I was in a really dark place, and forming a relationship with Jesus got me out of that place. I'm no longer an atheist. Now I'm a Christian. And right away, he was just like so upset. He's like, you betrayed me, kind of thing. And he's like, so you believe that this guy rose from the dead and you believe in a virgin birth. And there was no like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you found something that took you out from a dark place. There was nothing like that. The whole audience was kind of like turned off because, like, where's your heart? Where's your grace? Just doesn't have any of that. And clearly, based on this, I would argue he's not being logical. There's no evidence that could get you to change your mind. None. Then you're not evidence based. And yet you have a quote from CNN that says the only reason to believe something is based on evidence. Hmm. Anyway.